Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Howard on Sports. My name is Howard. And today, just in case you couldn't guess, I'm going to talk about how weather affects sports. So, obviously, any sport that is played outdoors is affected by weather. But I'm going to stick, well, I always, mostly I stick to the four major American team sports: football, baseball, basketball, hockey. Now, basketball and hockey, they play those sports indoors, so not really affected by weather. Hockey plays a couple of games outdoors every year, which I think is pretty cool. Also, hockey, if you're a fan going to the game, they have to keep the arena very I don't want to say frigid, but definitely on the cool side to keep the ice from melting. So I suppose weather is a slight issue in hockey, but not really. So let's stick with football and baseball. Football, more than any other sport, is affected by weather because they play in just about any type of weather. Now, they won't play on lightning because obviously lightning is hazardous, potentially a life and death situation, and they will remove the players from the field immediately as soon as they see lightning. But they'll play in just about any other kind of weather. They'll play in extreme fog. I once watched a playoff game on TV. They called it the Fog Bowl. I believe it was the Eagles versus the Bears. Wasn't very enjoyable to watch. Couldn't even see what was going on, but they said the players could see well enough to play. So um, I've seen games in extreme cold, uh, rain, snow, wind. Wind is definitely an issue. In the kicking game, especially, if the wind is blowing in your face, obviously it's going to make it a lot harder to kick. In some situations, though, if the wind is at your back, I suppose it can help. It can add extra distance on your field goals. Uh, Also, wind makes it harder for the quarterback to throw the ball. Now, I remember back in the '80s as a Giants fan, we had a quarterback named Phil Simms, who was a good quarterback. I'd say a very good quarterback. He's not a Hall of Famer, but one thing he was really good at was playing in Giant Stadium in those windy conditions. He knew how to play on that field, and he could throw the ball into the wind. I'm not saying he was throwing it 60 yards, but he was able to play just well enough, and that gave the Giants a great home field advantage. Um, Now, as far as playing in rain, that surprisingly enough, that is an advantage for the receiver because the receiver knows where he wants to go, and the defensive back has to react to the receiver. So it's actually an advantage to the receiver, assuming that they have good footing, that they're wearing the proper cleats or whatever they wear. Um, but rain is not an advantage for the running back because when the quarterback hands the ball off to the running back, there's a greater chance of a fumble. It's very hard to hold on to the ball. The ball becomes a lot slicker. I'd say also in extreme cold, they say that the football becomes very slick and the running back is much more prone to fumbling. So, but definitely in football, overall, the weather affects the game more than any other game. But baseball, the weather affects the game as well. Baseball, certainly, there can be extreme, not extreme, but definitely cold weather in baseball. Again, coming from the Northeast, if at the beginning of the season in April, or if your team, in my case, the Yankees, are fortunate enough to make it into the postseason, they have to play in October. And a pitcher, it's harder to grip the ball when it's really cold out, and it's definitely harder to hit because it stings, right? When a pitcher throws the ball 100 miles an hour and you make contact and it's in on your hands, I mean, it really hurts. So the cold weather definitely has an effect on a baseball game. And of course, the rain. Now, if the rain is really bad, the game will get rained out. But sometimes, they might just have a rain delay, put the tarp on the field. And then other times they'll just play through it if it's not really bad. But playing in the rain is difficult. It's hard to grip the baseball for a pitcher. It can definitely lead to control problems. And if the field starts to get muddy, it's harder for, let's say, a player who relies on speed to steal bases. Also, an outfielder trying to catch a ball in the gap, having to run a long distance, that can be difficult in the rain as well. So, yeah, weather definitely affects football the most, but also baseball as well. Now, as you know, football and baseball have dome stadiums, some of them, and in those situations, of course, the weather doesn't affect the game at all. Now, many people would make the argument that those stadiums, from a fan standpoint, are practical because in the summer, if it's extremely hot, and for baseball, and in the winter for football, if it's extremely cold, it makes it a more enjoyable experience for a fan to not have to suffer through those elements. But some people would make the argument that the elements are part of the game, especially in football. You know, for a football player to be out there in really difficult weather is sort of a test of willpower. And as a fan, watching from my couch, of course, not suffering, so selfishly I'm saying this, but as a fan, it's kind of enjoyable to watch a football game with extreme conditions. Um, I remember watching a playoff game between the Patriots and the Raiders, early 2000s, and it was snowing the whole time. And truthfully, it looked beautiful. I don't know if it was fun to play in it. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but it was really fun to watch. So at the end of the day, I would say that football and baseball are games that are meant to be played outdoors and meant to be enjoyed outdoors. And uh, sometimes you encounter really bad weather, and it's all part of it. So anyway, the last thing I want to say is I know this was sort of a silly video, and I really just wanted an excuse to wear sunglasses and twirl an umbrella in my apartment. So have a nice day.